Hello everyone, I'm Dan Basse, President of AgResource Company, joined by Dr. Bill Tierney, here to talk a little bit about the Chicago markets and world grain markets as we go forward. Now, Bill, we haven't done one of these interviews for a while. There's been not much happening. The farmers have been, at least in the Midwest here, active in cutting their crops and gathering corn and soybeans. But as we've been working through our research, is there anything that really comes out to you in terms of trends that are different? We're now in a market that's been down for roughly 4 years. Mm-hmm. It's, the easy money has been made in the bear. What do you see going forward here in terms of opportunities looking down the road?
Well, the one crop that we can say something about substantively for 2017 is the winter wheat crop, because they're planting it right now. And that's going on throughout the northern hemisphere. And it looks like in the U.S., again, we're going to see another reduction in winter wheat seedings, probably total wheat seedings. I think last year we were at a 49-year low, something like that. We might go to a 60-year low. And there's very good economic reasons for that. The returns to growing wheat, on average, based on USDA data, are negative and have been negative for most of the time. So if you can grow something else, you'll grow something else. Now, does that mean that 2017 prices are going to be up because U.S. wheat seedings are going to be down? We don't think so. You just got back from a big conference in Africa with international grain traders and flour millers. What did you hear about what's going on in the Black Sea in terms of winter wheat seedings and crop conditions there?
Well, most people were talking winter wheat seedings to be up anywhere between 4 and 6%. Mm-hmm. Though the topic of the whole meeting, Bill, was really the pasta people. Everybody's talking about durum because as we look at the nearby durum sheets, balance sheets today, and what's happened in Canada, having maybe only 15% of their durum crop really meeting millable grade, we really have a hole, if you will, in the balance sheet for durum. And some of us think about durum prices maybe doubling over the next 6 to 9 months, which again would really play into a bull market for high pro wheat and for durum. Durum's not a crop that we can trade on futures, so it becomes a little difficult. It's a cash market trade.
It is.
But I do believe that there's this shortage of high pro wheat that will ultimately transpire into better U.S. export demand sometime December or after the first of the year.
Well, I've kind of got a follow-up question. I mean, we've discussed wheat, but the biggest crop grown here in the United States is corn. We're almost done with harvest. Do you think the harvest lows are in yet?
I think they could be tested again, maybe in late year, early next year. Mm-hmm. Corn, to me, just doesn't have a lot of appeal. It's not a spicy meatball. It's a market lock between probably 320 and 370 for the foreseeable future, unless someone has a weather problem of severity. And so, as you look at the corn market, it's probably the lowest on my list in terms of activity and tradability. Maybe we need to talk about soybeans, because if the USDA comes out on Wednesday with a soybean yield that's above 52 or 52.5 bushels an acre, that would maybe tip our balance sheets closer to 500 million bushels and give us some downside potential.
It might. But today the export sales report came out, and I think export sales were up 2.5 million metric tons. That's the largest for the year. We're almost at the previous record high in terms of export commitments for the state at the beginning of November. I mean, in any way, is this near record pace of export sales and export commitments, is that going to more than offset the record soybean crop, or do you still think we're going to be building stocks and keeping prices low?
In our work, it would suggest, Bill, that anyway, as U.S. export sales could maybe go up another 25 million bushels in beans, but we're near the top, and I'd say the same for corn. So to me, the saturation point is being reached in terms of how high USDA can raise exports and demand. A lot of that extra supply would fall to the bottom sheet.
Well, what do we think about South American weather? If exports are already at elevated levels, do we fear that South American crops are going to repeat last year's problems, or are we assuming relatively normal trend yields at this time?
Bill will touch the weather question again in another interview, but for today, thank you for listening. We'll be back. My name is Dan Basse, joined by Dr. Bill Tierney, talking about grain markets, and we'll hopefully revisit this whole subject of weather in the next couple of weeks.